Good morning, folks. Thanks for being here. We appreciate your time. Katie Earle, coordinator of our University Express program, and we're joined here with Cheryl Moore, who's the medical care administrator for our Erie County Department of Health. Welcome, Cheryl.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for having me today. Appreciate being here. So, I think
Absolutely.
today we're going to talk about what's going on in the world of opioids and overdose deaths out in our community. I appreciate you being here. We have a small group, so it's going to be real informal. Pop in anytime, ask questions anytime, okay? What you see up here is Erie County Opiate Epidemic Task Force. It is actually a legal body that the county executive created in 2016 in response to the number of deaths that we have. There's 7 work groups. It is families, it is law enforcement, community education through the U.S. Attorney's Office, the doctors changing how they're prescribing. 86% of people struggling with opioid overdoses, we know today from research, started with prescription opioids. We know they were very, very freely prescribed for many, many years. We had a real problem with the drug OxyContin, with really some unethical promotion of it by Purdue Pharmaceuticals. We're seeing all the lawsuits happen now. But the disease of opiate use disorder, the disease of addiction, didn't just go away because we took the medicine away. We got a lot of sick people. And that's what we're going to talk about and how to keep them alive. Dr. Lynch, really amazing man. He has put together a program where people can get treatment for substance use literally in a hospital emergency department or on the street in a virtual way. We just had our team trained here yesterday under a program called New York Matters. It is something that anybody can, from their home, virtually have a doctor's appointment with someone, talk to a provider, get linked to care at a long-term care provider, literally from your couch. This is about getting people the treatment they need where they need it. Katie and I were actually talking before we started about bringing services to people where it's convenient to them instead of asking people to go all over the place. It makes it much easier to access care, and people are more successful then too. So really amazing, called New York Matters, and it's available to everyone. Naloxone access. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Naloxone is a generic name. Narcan is the brand name of the drug that reverses an overdose. It is the only thing that we have today. It's a do no harm drug. It works on all opioids. It works for everyone. You will see this co-prescribed many times when people are getting prescription opioids because they're still out there. We were discussing a case earlier. People take their medications in ways that work for them, but sometimes they do overdose. Having Narcan in the home to reverse that overdose is critical. Mark O'Brien is the Commissioner of Mental Health. He coordinates the treatment providers. That's things like Horizon Health Services, Best Self. Treatment providers is much different than medical care providers. A lot of wraparound servicing, a lot of group servicing. One of the key strengths of this group is we brought all those people together to integrate care. It's this whole body, folks. You're not just your head or your arm or your leg, you're your whole body. So we had to integrate care for folks. So in the United States of America, just to show you the epicenter of this epidemic, it is the whole West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky area. This map, this pullout, it's the northeast corner of the United States. It is from the Centers for Disease Control. It was published in The Economist in 2017. These were the opioid deaths that were occurring. We were trying to figure out what was going on. Now realize, federal data from 2017 is actually from 2015, takes a couple years. So looking at the epicenter of the epidemic, where a lot of prescription opioids were being used, or were being prescribed, were being taken too much, that whole Appalachia area, a lot of deaths occurred. The darker the color, the more the deaths. So looking at that, the problem was we in Erie County looked exactly like them. Rest of the state didn't look like that, so we had to figure out what on earth was going on here. Let's see here. So we're going to talk about opiate overdose prevention training today. What you see on your screen there is the drug Narcan. That is the brand name of it. That is the product that we use locally. It is a 4 milligram unit. It's a one-piece unit. It's a throwaway. Use it and throw it away. Works on all opioids, and I will stress that over and over. So thank you. Thank you very much for attending and really trying to figure out what the bejeebers is going on out there. And let me tell you, things are changing quickly. So we're going to talk about the deaths in Erie County, New York. This is from the medical examiner's office. These are people that have had an autopsy and a toxicology screen done that has confirmed that the primary cause of their death is due to opioids because they stopped breathing and they no longer had oxygen. So looking at this data, starting in 2009, 2009, 2010, around 70, 75 deaths. Erie County is a county of just under 1 million people. That being said, we are going to have causes of death for everything. You know, there may be cardiac deaths, cancer deaths, all different things. There are always going to be some due to opioid overdoses. It's a cause of death. That's what I would consider our norm. Next 3 years, around 100 deaths. Those are the OxyContin years. Overprescribing, people doctor shopping, going from one doctor to the other, getting multiple scripts, really not communicating with their primary about what was going on, self-medicating. And why were they doing that? Because the way opioids work, the more you take, the more you need. This happens to everybody. When you take opioids, you develop tolerance and you need more of them to get the same effect. So people were self-medicating, doctor shopping, only limited by, you know, what their health insurance would pay for or what cash they had available. Next year, 2014, 127 deaths. This is the year a law called iStop was put in place. This is the New York State Prescription Drug Monitoring Program. It is statewide. It is a checks and balances system. It is web-based. We have the most stringent prescription drug monitoring program in the whole country, actually, here in the state. Every state has one today, all a little bit different. So iStop locally, it is a web-based program. What it does is it really monitors the prescribing of Schedule II drugs. So that is things like OxyContin, like opioids, like things like benzodiazepines, things that are Schedule II. When a doctor orders these for you today, they have to go into this web-based system called iStop. They look you up as an individual. If you have not had a script, and there's a limitation on how much can be ordered for a patient daily, unless there is some justification done. So the doctor shopping phenomena is not there. So you go, you get your script, they order it, they electronically send it to a pharmacy. This is where we are different than any state in the country. We no longer have paper scripts except for time of emergency. It's electronic prescribing. This is about diversion because people are stealing script pads and writing their own scripts. So that changed. The pharmacist also looks into that system and they verify that you are that person. It's no longer about how you pay for it. And if something additional gets through, that is the checks and balances. You're only getting one script. The way the disease of opiate use disorder works, when you take opioids, after a set amount of time, you get more receptor sites for those opioids to land on in your body, body's protective factor. So you need more medicine, that is tolerance. So people had exponential tolerances, doctor shopping. 2014, we said you're no longer going to 6 doctors, you get 1. What we see going forward is the results of that. 2016, we had 301 deaths. It was our peak year. Who was aware of the sickness that came with stopping opiate use were drug cartels, and they flooded our streets with very, very potent opioids because you can't just stop. Well, we've learned a lot since we've worked together, and we have increased treatment availability, we have increased medication-assisted treatment, we have decreased initial prescribing, really to start to resolve this epidemic on the whole. Well, by the time we hit 2019, we were down to 156 deaths confirmed due to opiate overdoses. And that is through toxicology screens and autopsies. Well, then COVID hit 2020. The numbers went up exponentially. We do have 245 confirmed deaths last year. We're almost to our peak once again. We asked people to go home. We asked them to self-isolate. They did very well with that, but they were alone. And we lost a lot of people. The ages changed, the drugs changed, and we'll talk about that also. So who were these folks? Still a very male disease. It is 3 to 1 male. These are people that we have lost, people that have died. So looking at this, and we're looking at 7 years worth of data now, we have a lot of data. This is not made up. Everything we talk about is data-driven. So why males? Why more males? Think of initiation of opioid use. Think of the types of professions where you might get hurt very badly. Back injuries, construction, first responders. I've been working with Ford, with GM, Praxair, different companies over the years. Worked with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Every job site has Narcan kits on them because the overdose problem was large. So just things differently. We had to think differently. We had to integrate in different places. So now we looked at by race and ethnicity. Who are the people that we've lost? Well, I'm going to tell you about Erie County. Erie County is about 80% white, about 12% black, about 7% Hispanic. No, actually, I apologize. About 14% Black, about 7% Hispanic. And then we have a very diverse population in the west side of Buffalo, but it's a very small part of the population. Up until 2020, this has exactly mirrored our population. We're starting to see a small shift into communities of color, as you can see here. Not really sure why. We are doing some outreach on the street. We're doing interviews to ask what's going on. We have looked at where overdoses are occurring. That does not appear to be neighborhood specific. What it appears to be is different. It appears to be older, and it appears to be different drugs. So we'll talk about that a bit more. These are the ages of people that we have lost. 6 years running, our average age of death in Erie County of someone lost to an opioid overdose has been a 38-year-old male for 6 years in a row. Now, when you have an average, it means there's a big chunk below and a big chunk above. Up until this past year, the biggest chunk of people were between 20 to 39 years of age. This past year, this changed, completely changed. From 35 to 60 is our biggest chunk. This is not a child's disease. It is a much older person's disease. And looking at the deaths that we experienced last year, look at the 50s, the 60s and over. Proportionately, these numbers are very, very high. Very scary too. When I look at opioid reversals, when I look at that 50 to 59-year-old age group, there is an equal amount of deaths as there are reversals. So that is about stigma and denial. In the younger age groups, I will see 5 or 6 reversals for each death we experience. It means somebody gets to them, gets them breathing. So we have a lot of work to do, people, and we got to take care of each other here. Different population. We'll skip this one. It's a messy slide. So this really actually speaks to COVID. And I wanted to share this with you. This data comes from our law enforcement partners. They report every overdose that they go to, and they go to all of them on a process called OD mapping. From this system that they go to, a blue line means they went to a site where someone wasn't breathing. They gave them Narcan, they started breathing. A red line means that person did not start breathing and they potentially died of an overdose. They have not had an autopsy or toxicology screen done. It's due to the scene. So I wanted to share that with you. Looking at 2019, that is what we expect. That is normal. We have overdoses, we resolve them, we save people. The numbers are down. They were way down, as you could see. There was 156 deaths total. Then we hit 2020. 2020, January and February is what we would expect. The numbers were way down. We were actually on a trend to, it looked to be even lower than the previous year. And then COVID hit, March of 2020, and you can see the numbers here. In Erie County, March 16th is the day we shut down. New York State went on pause on March 22nd. Looking at that red line in March of 2020, those are people that potentially died. Comparing it to the previous year, it is triple what we saw. The part of that is really scary, I went back and I looked at the data. Between March 1st and March 15th, there were 3 potential deaths. All the rest of those occurred after March 16th. Now, we went home, we isolated, we did what we asked people to do, but they were alone. We didn't find them till a day or 2 later. They were in a single family home. Perhaps they got laid off. They were not on their regular schedule. Somebody didn't call to wake them up, do a welfare check. The numbers of deaths escalated exponentially. In August, if you see, the numbers of deaths went down. We opened up here in Erie County. People were out in public. They were not alone. Then the numbers went up again. We went into an orange zone. We shut down. So we see the effects of isolation. What we have learned from this, folks, and I really want to be upfront with you, if you're worried about someone, call them. Don't double think yourself. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. If you even got an inkling, call them. Stop at the house. See what's going on with them. Just do a welfare check and let somebody know you care about them. We looked at the days of the week that these overdoses were occurring. This is all of 2020. And it's really every day. There's really no pattern. This is something we look for data to be able to reach out to people and offer them linkage to treatment. It's every day of the week. This affects everyone equally every day. Residents at time of death. This is the million-dollar question, folks. Consistently, a third to a half are city of Buffalo. The rest are every town, every village. I'm going to show this to you in a pie chart format. It's much easier to see. So looking at 2014, residents at time of death. About a third the city of Buffalo, 2/3 everywhere. There's not a town or a village that's not listed here. Here's 2015. Here's 2016. Here's 2017. There's 2018 and 2019. 2020, we've just completed the data, so we have not pie charted it out yet. And honestly, we didn't list the towns or villages here because they're all the same. Now, like I said, about a third the city of Buffalo, 2/3 everywhere else. Historically, city of Buffalo, high drug use area, east side of Buffalo, west side of Buffalo. These were the areas we were concerned about. Now, what we saw here, we looked at this for the first 4 months of last year during COVID to see if something different was going on. Nothing different going on, which was another interesting thing. Here, let me close this up for you. Nothing different going on all over the county. More overdoses in areas of population density makes sense. There's more people, but there's no area of the county this did not occur. We looked at a whole year's worth of data last year. It looks, it looks exactly the same. All over the county, everywhere. There's not a town or a village where this doesn't happen, as you can see. A diamond means somebody died. A dot means that there was an overdose occurred and someone used Narcan and they started breathing. Our first ring suburbs, our city, very dense, lots of dots, lots of people. But going out in the rural communities, look at Springville, look at Gowanda, look at North Boston, look at Angola. Look at all of these towns and villages. Look at North Tonawanda, look at Akron, look at East Aurora, look at Orchard Park. This happens everywhere, folks, literally everywhere. We did a mapping of all the people that we've lost because we're like, gosh, what's going on there? This is like, oh my gosh, this is those city people, those inner city, west side, east side people. Nope, not so much. Historical opioid use, the areas that are very low, 14202, 201, those areas there, that is the lower west side of Buffalo. That's where opioids were sold and used. That has changed drastically, as you can see. Many of our suburban zip codes, more deaths than are there. Let's look at it by quintile. It is even more apparent. You can see it. So what we really have to understand is this disease doesn't differentiate. It doesn't care where you live, doesn't care what you look like, really doesn't care. It'll get you. And we have to really, as a community, understand that. So what do people die from? Types of opioids. 2014, the opioids were prescriptions mostly. That's what other opioids are. So think of OxyContin, oxycodone, Vicodin, fentanyl patches, Lortabs, you name it, any kind of prescription opioid. Fentanyl, that is not the patch. This is a white powder that started to come into our community. Remember, this is the year that iStop was in place, when we started to see an increase in deaths. Heroin comes from a poppy and then a mixture. In 1 year, this changed drastically, folks. 2015, prescription opioids are very limited now. Remember, because of that law, what took over was fentanyl. We really didn't understand how sick people were. Now, what I want to share with you, and I don't know if you know anyone, but if someone is struggling with opiate use disorder, it is not about having a party, folks. It's about not being sick. It's about not having diarrhea. It's about not vomiting. It's about not thinking the train's running you over, because that's withdrawal. Opiate use disorder, the only time that you feel any euphoria is the first time you use an opioid. After that, it's just about not feeling bad. It's really not about feeling good. It's about feeling normal every day. So we looked at 2016 and 2017. Fentanyl has taken over everything, folks, literally. There's 2018 and 2019. It's all fentanyl. Now, the fentanyl is a white powder. It was coming out of China. It was going to Mexico. They were cutting heroin with it, shipping it up here. That's all been bypassed since about 2016. The dark web, very effective. People go on there. It's parallel web. They use Bitcoins or other kinds of currency to purchase things. They order whatever it is they think they're getting, and it comes in their mailbox. We've learned the U.S. mail, probably one of the biggest drug dealers today. People are pretty frugal. They will look for a good deal on their medications. We did a press release about a month ago, and I want to share with folks, if you are on prescription medications, whatever you do, please only fill them at the drugstore. I don't care if it sounds like a good deal online. Everything that has been seized at crime scenes, everything in the past year that we thought were Oxycontin 30s, that we thought were Percocet 5, that we thought were Xanax, and I'm trying to think, there was a couple others, had nothing to do with any of those drugs. They were 100% fentanyl. These are things coming off the dark web. People think it's a great deal. You know, scripts are expensive. I get it. But if you are on prescriptions, particularly opioids, folks, or anti-anxieties, you got to go to the drugstore. And you need to go there. You need to get it yourself from the pharmacist, walk out with it. There are so many adulterated things out there today. We need to use traditional routes. So here is this year, including 2020. I haven't had time for a pie chart. Like I said, we just finalized that data. So in 2020, 76% of our deaths were attributed to fentanyl, this white powder. Now, this white powder fentanyl, that's like the ultimate opioid. Heroin's the original opiate. It comes from a poppy. You grow a poppy, you do something in the field, you know, you create opium, create heroin. Opioids are nothing but synthetic heroin. What we did is we took that molecule, we went in a lab, and we replicated it. We made it cheaper, we made it faster, we made it stronger. Lands on the same receptor sites, your opioid receptor sites. They're called your mu receptors. Has the same effect. One is a natural, the other is just synthetic, but it's the exact same thing. So heroin, very little. Fentanyl and heroin mixed. Other opioids, prescriptions, they're still out there. People are still overdosing and dying on them. So please be careful, okay? This is the biggie, and we think this is a shift, one of the big shifts in the change of demographic of age. Cocaine. About 48% of our deaths in 2020 of all of our confirmed are cocaine and fentanyl. People that are doing cocaine think they're getting a stimulant. So when it's cut with an opioid as strong as fentanyl, they just die. Really scary. This year in 2021, what we've seen, it's about 78%. Cocaine's a different drug, folks. People will tell you they're not a drug user. I just did a line. Or they may never do drugs and they're out with friends and do something they shouldn't do. And we're losing a lot of people. Today, everything is cut with fentanyl. Here in Erie County, we see the cocaine's all cut with fentanyl. We see the prescription drugs that are fake. In the southern tier, we see a lot of methamphetamine cut with fentanyl. It's all out there. Now, the meth and the cocaine are stimulants. I want to stress once again. So people are blindsided by the opioid and they die. We weren't really sure what we were seeing. So we went to Central Police Services and we're like, oh my gosh, what is in these people's blood? What are we seeing out there? They were seeing the same thing at crime scenes, and this verified it and it validated it. So from 2014 to 2017, it transitioned from heroin at crime scenes to all fentanyls. The same thing we were seeing in the toxicologies that I showed you before. By 2018, very little heroin, folks. But boy, fentanyl took over. And these analogs, and that's what they are called, things like butyrylfentanyl, fluoroisobutyrylfentanyl, furanylfentanyl, acetylfentanyl, acrylfentanyl, U47700. That's another one. They call it pink on the street. They're all analogs of the legal fentanyl that we have. Fentanyl is a legal drug. We use it in the Duragesic patch. We use it in Insys, the spray, the lollipop for end-stage cancer. All of these, though, are not that. What the cartels have done is they've modified them just slightly. And why have they done that? A couple reasons we've learned. One, they may be slightly stronger because the way opioids work, the more you take, the more you need. There's no end in sight. As you take opioids, you just continue to get more and more receptor sites, so you need stronger medicine. Secondarily, these drugs do not exist in the legal world. They have not been approved by the FDA, none of the above. So if they are at a crime scene and they're found with them, they can't even be charged with them because they don't exist. Now in Erie County, we have a really good relationship between our law enforcement from the local up to the federal. They work together on these. They process scenes, homicide scenes where people died together, and they transfer the cases up. They are able to charge people and charge people for these drugs at a federal level, just not local. Whoop, sorry. 2019, as you can see, it's all fentanyl now. Very little heroin, but literally all fentanyl. The other thing I do want to stress with you, these are drug dealers. This is not your typical white-coated lab, you know, your FDA monitored lab. 65 different drug combinations in 53% of the cases. This mishmash. We're not talking a white-coated lab with scales and measurements. They're just mushing stuff together, as we can see evidenced by what they're picking up. So a little historical perspective. Heroin's been around forever, folks. It was a product of the Bear Company. Up until 1914, when the Harrison Narcotics Act was put in place, that is what Bear sold. They sold it for everything. That time they switched them. They went to aspirin. After that, we have scheduled these drugs. It became a Schedule 1. There was no medical use for heroin, is what they had said. So we had started to create the prescription ones, which really started, they did help people in many ways. We just did not understand the damage they could cause also. This is actually butyryl fentanyl. I want to show you this. Top right corner, that's a kilo of it. It was from a bust in South Buffalo in 2014. Our first experience actually in the country with butyryl fentanyl. There was 31 kilos seized at this scene. It was a domestic incident. One sister came from out of town to visit the other. That's one of her pieces of luggage there. Husband came home from work. They were fighting. He called the police to get the visitor out, and all that came to the door. This is how these things would occur. Now, the dark web has taken over a lot of this. It's just coming in the mail. Top right corner, kilo of butyryl fentanyl. It's kind of sandy colored. You're seeing it down in the bottom picture. That stuff is super duper potent, folks. The equivalent of 3 to 5 grains of salt. Think about how much that is. That's all it takes to kill a non-opioid user. The bottom open hand, the open palm, those are bags of dope. That's what they seized that day. No one's going to say, do you want to buy heroin? Do you want to buy fentanyl? They're going to sell you a bag of dope. West side of Buffalo, Manteca is the word. Those bags, those happen to be marked. They had said, be happy on them. And when I say bags, they're like, it's very much like parchment paper if you're a baker. It's a glassine envelope. There's no bags involved, no balloons involved, but that is what's termed a bag of dope. Remember, 3 to 5 grains of salt is all it takes to kill a non-opioid user of that butyryl fentanyl. So they don't need a lot of powder in that little packet. The two hands together, those two, that picture right there, those are bundles. So it's 10 of those little bags rubber banded together. And it's a business, folks. They might get them cheaper. That's why they do that. This is drug use in the community today. I stop, I take pictures everywhere. Parks, throughway exits, you name it. And this is where you see it. Side of shopping centers. This is actually a throughway exit. It's the same picture. I just pulled it out so you can see what's going on there. Let's see if I can annotate. I always mess this up for you. So here, in this picture here, this board is what we're going to talk about in the other pictures. That is a cooker board. What you see on there is evidence that someone has been down there, they have been heating up their product, and they've been taking it, ingesting it in different ways. So on the board, these silver little discs here, this one here, and this one here, these are the bottom of pop cans somebody cut off. It's concave. You can put your powder in it in the middle of it, as we can see a little residue here in this one. You can see a little bit here too. You add some water, and then you can, here's a match. You can heat it up and liquefy it. And then you can take it, however it is that you need to take it, okay? How do many people take it? Well, there's needles. Here's a needle here. There's many needles in this bigger picture. I'll point out to you to the far left. Or you can put it on one of these tampons. Here's one here. Here's one here. There's one down in here. And you can put it up in a body cavity. People will tell you, this is not about getting high or having a party, folks. This is about feeling okay. So really understanding that, they're trying not to have a party. They will do anything to feel okay. I'm not an IV drug user. I will take medicine. We didn't even talk about carfentanil, but I'll bring that up now. We really have not seen that in Erie County, and I'm really glad, but we haven't needed to. Carfentanil is a big animal tranquilizer. It is used in zoological preparations. It is used for elephants, for rhinoceroses, for hippos. Beginning of the epidemic, that's what they were seeing pretty exclusively in that Ohio Valley that I showed you, Appalachia. We haven't really seen it here. We have a couple reasons why we think. One, carfentanil is a scheduled drug. It is scheduled for elephants, not for people. But if someone is arrested with that, they are going to jail. That exists. It's real. The FDA has approved it, all those pieces. The analogs haven't. Carfentanil is very, very potent. That can be thousands of times stronger than the heroin on the street. But we have many analogs today that just keep getting stronger and stronger. So they found like a kind of a substitute in there, many different reasons. I've had to learn that working with law enforcement, drug dealers are businessmen. The cartels are. They're in this to make money. There's nobody's goodness at heart, in their heart there. This is about money. And if that's not a safe way to make money, they're not going to do it. Commonly used prescriptions are still out there, and I want to show you this picture. There's quite a variety. Some are older ones that we may not use anymore, but there's still people have old things in their homes. Little kids. I was doing a training at one of the fire halls, and one of the firemen brought a 5-year-old with him, and he told us exactly this. Those are Pez candy. And then he proceeded to tell us of all the flavors of Pez candy that were up there. I cannot unsee Pez in my brain now. I'm the one that gets the reports from law enforcement of people that have used Narcan. In the past 5 years, I want to say I get 1 or 2 every year of a little one being reversed with Narcan. Innocent. They can open medicine bottles that none of us can open. I'll tell you that right now. This is candy to them. They're really creative to get to it. If you have little ones, grandkids that come to visit you, have Narcan in the house. They can open things we could never think to open. If they get into something, you call poison control. They walk you through saving your child. It's a safety mechanism. Nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed of. People are on medication, and kids are creative. It's who they are. My age group, I remember, it used to be the little orange aspirin. The kids would eat them by the bottle, and they would end up eating charcoal and getting their stomachs pumped. Different world, but nothing different. They wanted those because they were like candy. When that 5-year-old said, these are Pez, I'm like, that's what a 5-year-old sees. So we have to see it through their eyes and understand safety. We also have overdoses that occur on prescriptions, as you saw. It may not be working as well as someone thinks it should. They take another one. The first one hasn't metabolized quick enough, and they overdose. Narcan works there, works on everything. This is the heroin poppy, just to show you. It's very pretty. It's pink, it's pretty flower. It's actually the time of year where poppies are starting to emerge. It's funny, I walk around my neighborhood and I'm like, I wonder if that's one of those. But what you see there, that little gooey opium stuff, that's coming out of it. They take it to a lab, they do something to it. Now, heroin is really expensive, folks. You have to farm a field. You have to pay people to do that. Then you have to, it takes a long time. Then you got to put it in a lab, all this stuff. All those analogs, all of those opioids, really cheap. We can make them quick. The precursor ingredients are cheap, and the labs create them and pump them out fast. So y'all going to be trained overdose responders who are on here, and thank you for doing this. Get a refresher every couple of years. If you trained with me before, there is a change this year. There's a different Narcan that's there. It is no longer temperature sensitive. It has a red plunger. It's like the excitement in my life. I don't get excited, but nothing, this is great. We live in Buffalo. I mean, today it's going to be 85. Last week we had freezing weather. Things need to be much more temperature stable, and this new product is. It also has an extended shelf life. It has a 36-month shelf life. If you have Narcan at home and it is expired, add 12 months to it, it still works fine. They've done the research. If you do see an overdose, you think something's going on, our prime job, call 911 and tell them what's going on. I think I see an overdose. I need a car with Narcan. Use the words. ESP isn't working today. If there is an overdose, if you do use Narcan, I want to know what happened. So I need you to tell me what happened. So who overdoses? Well, if we use the word heroin, and I wouldn't even use that because it doesn't exist anymore. In the world of heroin use or opioid use, it's people that have been using it for a while. They understand, they're not afraid, they've been using it, they think they know what they're doing. Prescription drug users, same thing. I think I know what I'm doing. I bought some pills on the dark web. They weren't what I thought they were. A new person, they're scared out of their pants. They're usually much more careful. After a rehab situation, if someone is in an inpatient rehab where medication-assisted treatment is not offered, that is one of the absolute highest risk time. We lose people within the first week when they come out. Same with after jail. Medication-assisted treatment, methadone and Suboxone. They are opioids, folks. People need to replace opioids with opioids. Currently, our jail takes people off their medication. They cannot live without them. We really need this. We have the research. 100% of people not on medication-assisted treatment, and this is research, it's from the American Journal of Substance Use, will relapse. 100%. They need to be on medication a minimum of 2 years. A lifetime is absolutely fine. Minimum of 2 years to allow their brain to heal, create their own chemicals if they don't stay on their meds. But it's been a long journey for us to learn the medical piece of this disease. This is a medical disease. Chemicals change in your brain, and we had to change. Prescription drug users, as I emphasized before, please, unless you got that prescription at the pharmacy, please do not take it. What we are seeing out there on the street are not what they are supposed to be, is what I'm going to tell you. Risk factors for overdose, reduced tolerance after rehab. We just talked about that. Using alone. We saw that during COVID. We lost so many people. We had calls from a mail buildup on a porch, single family homes. We had calls, and I still remember I spoke to a woman whose husband was laid off. She went in at 10 in the morning to wake him up. She normally went in at 6 a.m. He had been laid off. He was dead. So routines were upset. She's still blaming herself. She shouldn't blame herself. History of previous overdose, probably the biggest indicator of an overdose. That's it, the biggest one. So how does an overdose happen? Well, generally, you have a little bit of time, okay? So you take something. Let's talk about prescription drugs. Lortabs are out there. People still take them. They take them like crazy. I just had an overdose in a much older individual a couple days ago from Lortab. So I'm making up a situation for you. I've been taking Lortab, 5 milligram Lortabs, 2 of them actually, every 4 hours because I tore up my knee. Took them for a couple of weeks. They want me to get surgery. I just don't have time for that right now, so I continue to take medicine. Now, what happens in my body, I have those opioid receptor sites, those mu receptors. The more I take this Lortab over long term, I get more of those mu receptors. That's my body's protective factor, taking care of me so that I potentially don't overdose. Now, because this is happening, though, and I have more sites for the medicine to land on, it doesn't last as long. It's not staying in my system. That 4 hours is not cutting it. After about 2-3 hours, my knee really, really hurts. Well, this is how people overdose, and it's very simple. I'm just going to double up the dose. I was taking 2 5 milligram Lortabs every 4 hours. I'm going to take 4. I just took too much, and this is how an overdose happens. I got so much, it filled up all my receptor sites, all those opioid receptors, and I got extra floating around in my bloodstream. That's an overdose. Your breathing slows, your breathing stops, your heart stops, and you die. That's it. So opioids repress your urge to breathe. They decrease your response to carbon dioxide. That's what actually makes you breathe. That leads to respiratory depression, and you die. Now, in this cascade, once your heart stops, we know we can restart it, right? We can use an AED. We can do all these things. But if you have been without oxygen 4 to 5 minutes, that brain's not coming back. We just had an incident once again. I believe it was DMX, one of the big rap stars. They had a big thing all over the news about him having a heart attack and a prayer vigil. Well, he had a heart attack because he had a fentanyl overdose. He'd been without oxygen for a long time. That family had some really hard decisions to make on pulling that plug. So slowed breathing stops, heart stops, you die. But that's a long cascade, folks. We want to intercede, before your heart stops. So in an overdose, couple of situations. You have the nod, the heavy, uncontrollable nodding. And you may see this even in family, friends, people that are on prescription opioids. My grandmother was on opioids for a very long time. She had osteoporosis and literally shrunk. It was long before the treatments of Fosamax and things. So every time she would break a bone, they would up her morphine dose. By the end of the day, she'd be kind of bobbling around at dinner time. That's the opioid nod. So you'd be talking to her and she'd be like, and it'd be like, Graham, give her a shake. And she'd be like, what? What do you want? I'm just really tired. No, Graham, you're nodding out. You're still arousable in that situation, okay? You can be making like this gurgly noise when you're breathing, the gurgly noise. It can be drooling, but they're still responding to you. The difference in an overdose is the lack of responsiveness, folks. So that person that's there like bobbling all over the place, now they're like this. You give them a shake, you got no response. You do something else called a sternal rub. You take your knuckles on the sternum bone and you rub hard, up and down, back and forth, hard. Make sure that person is out before you do that, though. That is a test of consciousness. It causes deep pain, but we're looking for responsiveness. Opioid overdoses are about two things: lack of responsiveness and lack of breathing. That's it. A fatal overdose is death. So if they're non-responsive, yet they're still like trying to breathe, but nothing's happening, you can give them Narcan at that point. That's an overdose. The key is lack of responsiveness. Majority of overdoses are witnessed, except for during COVID. That's where we lost everybody. I cannot stress enough. If you are worried about someone, don't double think yourself. Pick up that phone, go knock on that door, see what's going on. If you're a police, preventing calling 911, there is no worry. We have a good Samaritan law. Don't run, call 911. There's been billboards up. I'll go through all the law with you. This is critical this time of year, particularly graduation parties and things, underage drinkers. That's actually where the law came from. Witnesses trying ineffectual things. The only thing that works to reverse an overdose, folks, is Narcan. That's it. No other crazy things. No bathtubs full of cold water. No giving someone a shot of homemade saline solution of table salt and water. No stuffing their underwear and armpits with ice. None of this. None of the above. The only thing that works is Narcan. The absolute worst thing you can do, though, is just leave somebody and walk away. Be like, oh, they'll be fine. Don't double think yourself. Call for help. Narcan in action. How does this stuff work? Remember I told you about my Lortab experience? I took all this Lortab. I filled up all my receptor sites, and I got all this extra in my bloodstream, so I'm no longer breathing. I'm out. Someone found me. They came and they gave me some Narcan. This is what the Narcan does. That also got in my bloodstream, and it got to those receptor sites, and it knocked the opioid off, and it blocked it. That's all it did. It likes the opioid receptor sites even more than any opioid. So it knocks the opioid off, it blocks it. It doesn't let that opioid back on. Now, it doesn't metabolize or use up the opioid. It just pushes it off and blocks it. So the extra is still floating around your bloodstream. According to the manufacturer, Narcan should stay on those receptor sites about 30 to 90 minutes. I wouldn't go past about 30 due to the potency of the drugs. Works on all opioids. You may have to use multiple doses. That is the only difference, but it works on all opioids. Don't ever worry about that. So Narcan in action, I will tell you, you're not going to make friends. This is not how you make friends and influence people. You're going to learn some new words. They don't feel good, folks. Every bad thing that they've been trying to make not happen is happening to them. They hurt. They got diarrhea. They're vomiting. I mean, they really don't feel good. There's no psychoactive effects. There's zero potential for diversion. It's not addictive. You can't become resistant to it. It's been used by EMS as a rule out for many, many, many years. Narcan was actually invented in 1971 by a physician to save his son who was struggling with heroin use at the time. Very successful. His son just died a couple of years ago of old age. So it's been around a long time. There is no effect if an opiate isn't present. It's sold over the counter in New York State and actually every state in the U.S. 10 weeks ago now, the state of New Jersey had a Narcan weekend. It was sponsored by the New Jersey State Police. Every CVS and Walgreens in New Jersey for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday that weekend literally just gave Narcan away. State Police paid for it. You could walk into any of them. They just gave it away. That's how big the problem is, but that's also how safe Narcan is. You will never hurt someone with it. That is what I really want to stress with you. So what did we do here? Well, we didn't just sit around, to be honest. We really tried to help people. We have some new unique partners. I am in public health. I work with law enforcement every single day. They're out in the community. They're driving around. They know our residents. All 26 police departments in Erie County carry Narcan. I've personally trained all of them. They use Narcan. They use it every day. They reverse overdoses. They report on something called OD MAP, and this is the program I'm going to show you here. This is a police reporting system. So we've partnered with all of the different departments in peers and recovery. Each dot means that an overdose occurred and that someone was resolved with Narcan. They're still living. For each dot, there is a police report. The police reports are sent to us. We have peers in living recovery, people in living recovery that reach out to individuals and offer them linkage to treatment. It's pretty straightforward. They're pretty successful. About 23% of people after an overdose accept help. They do get linked to treatment. That's pretty good, I guess, in the treatment world. My background is medical. I would like to see that number much, much higher. But in the substance use treatment world, that's pretty gosh darn good. And there's many reasons we're learning. And they stay connected. We follow them for 90 days. That top line, and I offer this to you folks here, anyone on the call, that is a direct referral. So if you know somebody struggling with any kind of substance use, opiate use, and they need some assistance, some support, some advocacy to get them where they need to be, can refer them to us here at the county. We have a cohort of peers in recovery that will work with them on their terms to get them where they need to be. When we look at this number, it's pretty amazing. It's about 74% of people connect to care and they stay there. Any chronic disease, that's an amazing number. Interestingly enough, and I'll show you some slides at the end about medication-assisted treatment use, this is the number that stays connected to care in the research there also. So let's do a little review. In the first scenario, the nod, like you're talking to somebody and they're bobbling all over the place like my head is, and you're like banging on things, making noise, giving them a shake. And they're like, what? What do you want? As much as it looks bad, it's not an overdose. Now, you can also hear this. You gave them a shake, and this is what you hear. Now, I just said in my head, what do you want? Would you leave me alone? You heard, believe it or not, that is still a response. If they did not respond, then we would be moving into an overdose. Very shallow breathing, gurgling, that can still be occurring. You don't have to wait for that to stop. A fatal overdose is death. I can't stress that enough, okay? So non-responsive, lack of response to that sternal rub thing or any other painful stimuli you can do. I call it the mom thing. Give them a good pinch under the arm, something to cause deep pain. If you don't have that, then we're talking overdose. They're no longer responsive. We have to act quickly. Remember, we have 4 to 5 minutes till the human brain is gone without oxygen. So these will be your steps. They will always, always be the same. 911, I think I have an overdose. I need a car with Narcan. Please use those words, folks. The words are critical. They know what they're getting into then. They bring the right tools and they activate the system. We need to get EMS there too for transport, all these things. Rescue breathing, we're going to skip that one. COVID, remember? Transmitted through the air. No more rescue breathing. We're going to give them Narcan and we're going to put them in the recovery position. Now, I want to assure you, like I said, I've trained all 26 police departments. We get their reports back. Police do not do rescue breathing, and they have an incredibly successful saving rate. So the key here we have learned from data, get the Narcan into them. This is a really important part. And then when they start to respond, we'll put them in the recovery position. So this, when we talk about Narcan, are the 4 Narcan delivery systems that are available in the community today. So the first one, that is a 4 milligram unit. That's what we've been using for a very long time around here. It looks like this. It has a white plunger. It is temperature sensitive. It's a one-shot use. You use it, you throw it away. The second one is a 2 milligram. Let me see if I can grab you one. The second unit is a 2 milligram unit that we literally created at the beginning of the epidemic. This is the kind that we were using IV. This is the IV ampule, actually. So pre-filled unit, syringe, you would screw it on here and you put it on the IV port and you would push it. Well, we didn't have a nasal kind, so we literally screwed an atomizer on it and we made nasal Narcan. 2 milligram unit, works very well, a lot of liquid. It was a whole process. I call this a test. You put it together, half up one nostril, half up the other nostril, it was like crazy. The other stuff, much simpler, much more straightforward. Next one, Avzio. The older population that we're seeing, people that may have manual dexterity issues, vision issues, this is Avzio. Very much like an EpiPen, talks you through it.
This trainer contains no needle or drug. If you are ready to use, pull off med safety guard. To inject, place black end against outer thigh, then press firmly and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Injection complete.
Anybody can do that.
This trainer
You could do it by feel. It will talk you through. You don't have to read instructions. Evzio, 2 milligram, also comes in 4 milligram. Narcan, little vial of medication. Let me see if I can find one for you. Big old needle like this. Injectable, and that's those little vials on the bottom. It is an injectable. It's an intramuscular, so it's big muscle. It's going to be in the deltoid up here. It's going to be in the buttocks. It's going to be in the upper thigh. It is not going to be like under the skin or in IV. That is Narcan. Additionally, now we have the new exciting product of Narcan. This is the 4 milligram, like I showed you the first one, but it is no longer temperature sensitive. You need to look for the red plunger. It also has a 36-month shelf life. If you do have the one with the white plunger and it say expires, say this month, add 12 months. This has been verified by the FDA and the manufacturer, but the red one, this is it. When you're done with your training today, I'm going to ask you to send Katie your information and I will get a Narcan kit out to you. I need your mailing address. You will get the new product. You'll have information, linkage to care for you there. Also, anything that you could need, linkage to my team here also. So this is the updated information from the Adapt Pharma company that talks about the extension in the shelf life and the fact that it's no longer temperature sensitive. Historically, if this stuff froze in your car, as you can see, these are like glass vials and there was liquid in it. The liquid would freeze, it would expand, the vial would break. Same thing inside of these units here. There's a little glass vial inside of this unit, inside of here, and there's liquid and it would freeze and it would break. So we would lose the medication. It can now take excursions into the heat. You go to the beach, it's in your car today, it'll be perfectly fine. I wouldn't store it there every day, but it'll be perfectly fine. If it freezes, no creativity. Do not put it in boiling water. Do not put it in the microwave. None of the above, okay? People are like, but I need it right away. You could do this. Watch what I'm doing. Use body heat. Open it up. Put it between your arm and your body. It'll thaw really quickly. You put it on a counter, it'll be thawed in 10 minutes, which would be too late. So just really don't be doing creative things though with the boiling water, the microwave. They're not made for that. It will thaw quickly. This is nasal Narcan. That's what I was just showing you. 1-piece unit. If you use this, there's always a routine we use. It is very touchy too. Once you push that little plunger, it's gone. You can't stop it. I'll show you one of them in a moment. When we get a little bit further, I'll deploy one so you can see how quickly it goes. Always the same routine. Peel, place, press. Let's go back. Peel, place, press. And the reason this is, when I press this button, and I want you to watch this, I can't stop it. I'm going to press one so you can see. Gone. And that is all the liquid there is. There isn't a lot of liquid in there. If you do that accidentally before it's in their nostril, throw it out. You can't get any more out of it. It's gone. Okay? Throw it out. Get another one. Don't worry about it. So peel, place, press. Say that over and over in your head, and it'll keep you in a good routine. No more, no more. We're not going to do rescue breathing. Always the same. I came on a scene. I gave him a shake. I got no response. I did that sternal rub hard. I got no response. I called 911. I think I see an overdose. I need a car with Narcan. Now I'm going to spring into action. Get that individual flat on their back. See my neck? A nice long neck. Extend their neck. 1 dose of Narcan. Peel, place, press. 1 nostril. Squirt. They're on their back. We're going to watch them for 2 full minutes, okay? I will tell you most overdoses that we see are 2 to 3 doses, so you probably won't see anything. So literally just stand there and watch them. 2 whole minutes. If nothing happens, let's open another dose. Peel, place, press. Other nostril. 2 more minutes. Now I see little cough. As quickly as you can, roll that person away from you. If you get their arm underneath their head like this, roll that top arm over, that top leg over, just step back. They'll stay propped up like that. The key here, though, get their neck, extend the neck. About 50% of the reports that we get after an overdose, there is some vomiting involved. You don't want them to aspirate and die after you did all that work, okay? Why is there vomiting involved? Most overdoses occur in a definite time frame. It's around mealtime. The majority during the lunch and dinner hours is where we see very many of them. If you just ate, dinner's coming out. I just want to tell you that. Step back, let the medication happen. This is where you're going to learn some new words. They are not going to feel good, people. They're going to be rocking and rolling. They're going to be losing bodily fluid. They're embarrassed. They're ashamed. They don't feel good. They hurt. Everything hurts in their body. I've lost a sister in this epidemic. She used to say things like her hair hurt when she was in withdrawal. I probably should have believed her. Her hair hurt. People are in such pain. Get a thick skin. They're not going to remember the event. You're going to see them the next day. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, what happened? What were you thinking of? And they're going to be like, who are you? It's okay. They have no idea. Traumatic medical event, so your brain protects you. Now, what if you roll them over, you prop them up, all of a sudden they get up and they take off like a bat out of hell. They take off. They're off and running. Wish them luck. Good luck. Be careful. Don't fall down. See you again. If they feel well enough to do that, let them go, okay? This is a medical event. It is not a criminal event. So just let them go. You'll see them again. We'd really like to offer people treatment. That's that Buffalo Matters, New York Matters, which is different. That is linkage to treatment on the spot. They don't have to feel bad. Common effects of Narcan. This is detox, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Your blood pressure's racing, your heart's racing, like you feel awful. Unmasking other things. If you took methamphetamine, it's still there, okay? But all of this pales into the, comparison of not breathing. Not breathing means you're dead. Whoops. Can you give them Narcan if you're not sure what they took? Absolutely. Don't worry about it. You will never hurt someone. I will share again. I trained all 26 police departments. They were like terrified of the stuff. So I would take Narcan when I trained them. They thought I was going to die. I'm fine. I'm opiate naive. It doesn't do anything but taste yucky. So be aware you'll never hurt somebody. Does it matter if it's a street drug or a prescription drug? Opioids are opioids, remember? All the same. What if you give it to the wrong person? You gave them a wet nose. That's about it. You made their food taste yucky. That's it. Better to err on the side of caution. Try to help them. You're never going to hurt them. New York State, here's the Good Samaritan law. This is that law that protects you. Two people. A person who in good faith seeks health care for someone who's experiencing a drug or alcohol overdose or other life-threatening medical emergency. That person, so the person who's trying to get somebody help and the person who needs help, those two people are the only ones protected. They're not going to be charged with any of this, okay? Drugs up to an A2 felony. So if you're at a scene and there's things there that shouldn't be there, you're not going to get in trouble. Alcohol for underage drinkers. This law actually came from the parents of underage drinkers. We're coming up on prom and graduation seasons. Please share this with people. They need to call for help. Don't let somebody die. Marijuana is coming off the list. It's now become legal. Paraphernalia offenses. Sharing of drugs in New York State. In New York State, that's illegal. The Good Samaritan law does not offer protection for people in possession of an A1 felony. That picture I showed you from South Buffalo. That's not a free ride, folks. That's a no-no. You will go to jail. If you have some baggage, as I call it, you have an open warrant. Take care of your business. This doesn't make that go away. This is about getting people medical help when they need medical help, okay? Go back to some nuts and bolts. Narcan should be kept at room temperature unless you have the red plunger, the miracle in my life. Then all bets are off. You're all good. If it freezes, please do not be creative. Do not microwave it. Do not put it in boiling water. Just put it at room temperature. Use your body heat if you need to. If you think it's corrupted, just reach out to us. We'll send you some new. It's no problem at all. Better to have good product with you if you need it. This is text for Narcan. This is available to everyone. You will get this information in your box when it comes in the mail to you. What I would suggest when you get it, open up your phone and you scan this little card. that little QR code, and just save it in your contacts. If you ever need Narcan, you send us a text, it comes in your mailbox to you. These are units that are wall units that are for public places. Perhaps you belong to a church or a community center, somewhere where you think people gather and you think this would be appropriate. Reach out to us. They are free. We recommend they are mounted next to AEDs. This is a first aid response, remember? So we will provide the units, we'll provide the supplies for them to wherever they need to be. We just ask that the site monitor it and refill when needed. So that information is there. It is there for the community. It's free for the community. This is about first aid, folks, keeping people alive. I shared with you the change in drugs, the change in ages. Cocaine is out there. It's all cut with fentanyl. I'm just going to be right up front. Be careful. Be careful. Carry Narcan. Southern tier, the methamphetamine is the same way. People need to carry Narcan. And this is one of the reasons why I do this. This is one of my coworkers. I told you I lost a sister to this epidemic, but recovery is possible. This is Antonio. I've worked with him for 22 years now. I've worked with him before he was in recovery. He has 21 years in recovery this past January. He works with more people and links them to care and assists them. Great family man, would not be here without the support of a recovery community. He is here to help other people. We're here to help you anytime. You can reach out to us. We are non-judgmental. This is on the individual. What a patient needs, it's a journey that needs to be taken. So I did tell you I want to share a little bit with you about medication-assisted treatment. That's 75% of people that connected to care after a direct referral. It makes total sense when we learn about this. So addiction. New treatments, better outcomes. We are very, very lucky here in Western New York. We have Dr. Rick Blondell. He is one of the founders of the American Society of Addiction Medicine, believe it or not. Comes from UB. He's now retired, but comes back, does a lot of lectures. I went to this lecture and it really opened my eyes to medication-assisted treatment, and I work in this field every day. So I hope it helps you to understand it a little bit. So Suboxone, that is one of the medications. I told you Suboxone and methadone are the medications that are recommended for treatment. We all have a natural opioid system. When we take outside opioids, we really mess it up. Too many receptor sites, we don't produce our own stuff. We need to do something medically to treat it. This is one of the medicines. So isn't it like trading one drug for another? Yep, placing that drug that's missing in our brain. So let's take 40 young adults, and I'm just alluding to young people. This could be older folks. All are injecting heroin. Let's put them in two groups. 20 go traditional, detox, counseling. 20, quote, trade heroin for Suboxone, but they also go to counseling, good wraparound services. What happens? Well, the 20 that go to detox and the traditional counseling, within a year, 0 are in treatment. 0. That should really open our eyes right there, 0. The 20 that, quote, trade heroin for Suboxone and counseling, 75% of them are still in treatment a year later. I think it speaks to the data that medication works. You need good wraparound support services, and people stay with us. We have a lot of data today that shows that 100% of people not on medication-assisted treatment will overdose again. Many people that overdose, we don't get to quick enough, and we lose them. So who does better? I think I want my loved one in the second group. We've learned a lot as a community. Folks like yourself are critical in this. You are the people that are out there. You see what's going on. And I really appreciate you being here for this training today. So on this note, I am going to make my PowerPoint go away and we can talk. So does anybody have any questions?
Well, I'm seeing a couple in the Q&A, Cheryl, but first I just want to thank you for giving all of that information in such a clear and understandable way, and to thank you for what you're doing for our community.
Oh, thanks. I see the questions. Okay. Yeah, there is an issue. Yes, you can get the copy of the slides anytime, and you can look at the data anytime. Did you record this?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll have a recording of it also. It's also on the website, and I do want to share with the folks that are on here. We have a task force that meets quarterly. The presentations are also up there, so there's even more data. There is data from the treatment agencies, from law enforcement about what's truly happening out there. There's connection to care information. So things that are out there, we really are trying to, a lot of this stuff we learned was just like made up, plain simple. I think, well, that's great, but the data says. So we've had to learn to address this scientifically and work like we do in any other disease. We wouldn't tell people with heart disease, well, I don't think you should be on that medicine. No, you really need to be on that. So we have the data behind it, the research behind it, and it's open for everyone. We will be publishing a naloxone tracker where those Narcan boxes I showed you are up there. You'll be able to locate them all over the community. We're in process of developing that right now. So the IT stuff I do want to share with you is a little glitchy. We have to get through some firewalls, but that will be up there. There'll be a lot more electronic things where you can see the real-time data every day as it occurs. Because the only way we can address this, like we've done with COVID in our community, is talk about it every day. So thank you so much. You're never going to hurt someone with Narcan. Oh, I know what I didn't bring up. Your pets. If you're out walking your dog and your dog gets into something, this works on pets too. Narcan works on them. And I showed you that mess in the community. That was actually a throughway exit. When I was a kid, there was this phenomenon. People would sit at the throughway exit and they would like empty their ashtrays. You probably don't remember this, but they would empty their ashtrays. I mean, that was my growing up at the throughway exit. Now you see that mess I saw that I showed you. It's different. So you're out walking your dog. They get into the stuff. They sniff. They act funny. Narcan works on them just fine also. Our drug officers that have our dog officers, we've trained all of them too. They all carry Narcan. They utilize this kind with the needle, just with the fact that we have a lot of German Shepherds out there and they got that big long nose. If the Narcan's not getting up in there. So they do the injectable. You can also use it anally, but you can use it to save your pets. So I want to share that with you. A lot of us have, our pets are our family. Don't ever be afraid, and you're not going to hurt them with it either. Okay?
Thanks, Cheryl.
Sure.
If we can, I just have a quick question for you. It's about the nodding stage that you mentioned. Can or should we intervene in any type of way for that? Or is that person going to keep declining, potentially into an overdose situation? What does that look like?
That's a great question. And that is the $1 million question. When they're there and they're doing that bobbling, and it's literally, you'll be talking to them. They might be drooling, but they'll do some response. If someone has had Narcan used on them before, I will tell you, you open Narcan, they're going to be out of there like a bat out of hell. They don't feel, they're going to know what happens to them. If someone is in that situation, I personally would not leave them if I could avoid it. You don't know what they took. Are they going to go down? Or are they going to just pop up and be like, and then you double think yourself, like, did I really see that? Don't ever double think yourself. You really saw it, okay? You really saw it. If you can stay there, just kind of hang out there and see what's going to happen. If they go down, call 911. If they just get up and walk away, so be it. If you're in a situation where you can't stay there, like maybe you see something on a street corner. I'm driving to do a meeting somewhere and I see Maine and Utica is prime time. I see nodding all the time. You see somebody there, or maybe you drive by a car. You see somebody in this car that shouldn't be, the car's running. Call 911. I think I see an overdose. It is at the corner of ABC. Please send a car. They will do a drive-by. If they don't, if that person's gone, so be it. It's okay. That's their job. We pay them to drive around your neighborhood. People get very upset. They're like, oh my God, what if they go and there's nobody there? That's their job, okay? But call. Give that person a chance.
Thank you for that. That's really good because
Okay.
that's not something I would have considered.
Yeah, just call.
For hearing that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Well, I'm not seeing anything else come through. I don't know if you are, but thank
No.
you, Cheryl. Thank you so much.
And those of you that are on here, if you get Katie your information, your mailing address, and give me the right spelling of your name, I'll get your certificate of training and your kit out to you. Okay?
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll be talking with you offline, Cheryl. Enjoy the rest of your day and take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye now.